Hello students, welcome to another tutorial on units and conversions. In this tutorial, we're going to look at these three questions. They all have to do with density. So we're going to be using the same idea here to work them out. I hope you guys are going to find this tutorial helpful. Okay, now what do we have to do? Well, let's look at the first one. It reads, if the density of carbon tetrachloride is 0.793 grams per milliliter, and the sample has a volume of 9.29 milliliters, what is the mass? Okay, so here, of course, there's really not that much we have to do. All that we can work with here is the density. So let's look at the solution. So for the first one, so what I'm given is the density. I'm going to use rho to mean my density. That is 0.793 grams per milliliter. So there's so many ways you can calculate or you can perform the calculation here. But for me here, what I'm going to do is, since I'm given the density, what they want me to find is the mass if the volume is given as, that's 9.29. That's 9.29 milliliters. When you look at it from this point of view, this becomes a very basic question from a lower level, I would say, because when you're looking at density and you have volume here, this is basically a grade 8 question or lower than that. The only difference here may be other units, because at that level, maybe you just deal with grams per centimeter cubic instead of the milliliters. Okay. But then what we want to find is the mass. So how do we do this? Well, from here, density has the formula of mass over volume. So we know what the density is. The density here is 0.793. So I see that the units that I have here, this is grams per milliliter. This is equal to the mass, which is what I want to find. The volume is 9.29 milliliters. When I cross multiply here, you see that now I have the mass is equal to 0.793 grams per milliliter times 9.29 milliliters. And here you will see that the milliliter and the milliliter will cancel out. And the mass that comes out here when you perform the multiplication is going to be 7.37 grams. Okay, so you can give it out in this in grams, or you can give it in kgs if you just want to be careful. Then, of course, in kgs, you just have to divide this by 1,000, or you can say this is 7.37 by 10 to the power negative 3 kgs. Okay, so this, of course, is the same thing. Okay, now this is one way that you can present it. I use the formula for density to perform the calculation. You can also just use any random method, really, if this is the value that you have. You can still try to look at it from other angles, but I think the approach of density here, the density formula, becomes is the easiest approach to use here. Okay, so let's look at the second question. For the second question, we have table salt. We're being told that table salt has a density of 2.16 grams per milliliter. If you use 2.00 milliliters on your food, how much in milligrams is that? Okay. So the first thing that we want to do here is, again, we're given the density. So let's go down. Okay, so let me just get the question somewhere else. Okay. So when you look at this, we're given the density of table salt. So the density here is given as that's 2.16 grams per milliliter. And then apart from that, now we want to see what they're telling us is that if you use 2.00 milliliters of your on your food, so we use a volume of salt, which is 2.00 milliliters on our food. We want to know what mass we have used in milligrams. So There are a number of ways. I would say there are two methods you can use to approach this. But first, in the method I'm going to use, or the method I'm going to choose here, first I'll find the mass in grams. After I find the mass in grams, then I'm going to convert that to milligrams, since they want our answer to be in milligrams. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, pretty easy as well. Density is equal to mass over volume. So now we want to find the mass. So we make mass the subject of the formula by cross multiplying. We see that now we have density multiplying volume. If we perform the substitution here, the density of salt is given as 2.1. That's 2.16 grams per milliliter. Multiplying the volume, 2.00 milliliters. So mostly in my calculations, when I'm doing it, I won't include the units. All I will do is make sure the units are the same. Of course, if they're measuring the same quantity, I'll make sure they're the same. Once they're the same, I'll omit them because I know how they're going to behave from there. But I'm keeping the units here so that you guys get to see how they interact. The milliliter will cancel with the milliliter there, meaning that the value I will get will not have milliliter, it will remain just grams. So this is going to be, when I multiply here, the final answer is going to come out as 4.32 grams. But the question wants the mass, yes, but not in grams, in milligrams. So now we want to convert our mass from grams to milligrams. So all we have to do here is remember the relationship between a gram and a milli. Milli means 10 to the power negative 3. So in this case, I always tend to use the positive powers. So I'll say 1 gram is equal to 10 to the power positive 3 milligrams. So this is the relationship I'm going to use. If you wanted to use the negative relationship, the one with the negative power, you'd have to say 1 milligram is equal to negative, that's 10 times. Okay, so that's not 10 times. Let's say 1 times 10 to the power negative 3 grams. So if you wanted to use it to use the relationship with the negative power, use the one below. But I always tend to use this one. It's up to you which one you want to use. They both work. Okay, so in my converter here, I want to pick any of the two relationships. They will work, but I always favor the positive one. So I want to eliminate the gram, so I'm going to get 1 gram and place it in the denominator in my converter. I'm placing it in the denominator so that the gram and the gram here can cancel out. Then the other value, the one on the other side of the equal sign, will go up. That's 10 to the power 3 milligrams. So when I perform the multiplication there, notice that now my mass is 4.32 by 10 to the power positive 3 milligrams. So I don't want to expand this any further, just give me more value. It's going to be about 4,320 milligrams. But of course, I think I'm going to favor leaving it in scientific notation. So this is going to be my final answer, the mass in milligrams. Okay, so this answers the second question. Now we'll quickly move on to look at the last question. So for the last question, what are we saying? Sorry, went too far. For the last question, what are we saying? So that's the third one. What we're saying is, what is the density in grams per milliliter of a substance that has mass 0.987 kg and has volume, that value. So we want to find the density of a substance given its mass and its volume. Okay, so look at what we have. So we want to find the mass in grams per, what's this, per milliliter. So I want to find the mass in grams per milliliter. But what are we given? We're given the mass in kgs, 987 kgs, and we're given the volume in milliliters. That's 4.52 by 10 to the power 2 milliliters. So with this in mind, there are two methods you can use here. you can first convert the mass, because I'm seeing the mass here is in grams, the volume is in milliliters. So you can first convert the mass first before even doing anything. Convert the mass to grams, and after you've done that, then use the formula for density to get the value. The value you're going to have will already be in milliliters. The volume is given already in milliliters, meaning that there's no need for us to touch it. Or you can first make the division here, use the density formula, mass over volume, to get the density in kgs per milliliter, then convert that value from kgs per milliliter to grams per milliliter. For me, I'll first convert the mass from kgs to grams. So of course, the mass is 0.987 kgs. I know to say in every 1 kg, there are 1,000 grams. So the kgs is in the numerator. I'll place it in the denominator. In 1 kg, I have 1,000 grams. So if I simplify this, I see that the mass in grams is 987 grams. Once I have that, now I can perform my division. The mass is 987 grams. The volume is the same value which was given, 4.52 by 10 to the power 3 milliliters. When we simplify this, we see that the value we get when we perform the division becomes 2.18 grams per milliliter. Okay, so that becomes our final answer. Okay, hope this is not confusing you. Write it somewhere there, 987 grams. Okay, so this is how we approach this. So I really hope you guys were able to follow. These questions were slightly easy, I would say. I hope you were able to find them easy as well. So yeah, but for the next session, we have one question which seems to trouble a lot of students. Not that it's very difficult or something, but it's just because of the English and having to follow it. I think this question is relatively easy as well. It's just you having to understand what the question is really asking you to do. So this is the question we're going to look at in the next video. Hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, let me know in the comment section. Otherwise, we'll see you guys in the next tutorial. This was your tutor.